Everywhere you look, people are hustling. Side gigs, freelance work, flipping items, selling products online. It's become the symbol of modern ambition. And why not? Side hustles promise flexibility, extra income, and even the illusion of freedom. But here's the truth most people don't talk about. Chasing side hustles without controlling your finances is like patching a sinking boat with tape. You might float for a while, but eventually, the cracks will catch up with you. I want you to imagine something for a moment. You're scrolling through social media, and everywhere you see posts about people making 500, 1,000, even 5,000 on the side. They're freelancing at night, delivering packages on weekends, flipping thrifted items, or trading online. And they look happy, successful, in control. You think, maybe I should be doing this too. Maybe this is the answer to my financial problems. And that's when the trap starts. Let me be clear. Side hustles themselves aren't bad. They're just tools. The problem is, most people turn to them for the wrong reasons. They aren't thinking strategically, they're reacting. They're chasing extra income because their budget is already leaking money. They're trying to fix overspending with more work, rather than fixing the root cause, their relationship with money. Think about it. How often have you met someone who works 3 jobs but still struggles to pay bills? How often have you seen people hustle tirelessly for months, only to realize the money disappears as fast as it comes in? That's because making more money doesn't solve a financial problem if the money isn't managed properly. I remember a friend of mine, let's call her Sarah. Sarah worked full-time, but she also did freelance graphic design in the evenings. She delivered packages on weekends, sold handmade crafts online, and took odd jobs whenever she could. She was proud of her hustle, and rightly so. She was working hard, showing discipline, and building skills. But when we looked at her finances, the reality was sobering. Despite all that effort, she was still living paycheck to paycheck. Her side hustles didn't make her wealthy, they simply kept her afloat. She hadn't learned to budget. She hadn't learned to manage the money she already had. This is the story for so many hustlers. They earn more, but they spend more. They work harder, but their stress increases. They chase financial freedom but get trapped in constant busyness. And often, they don't even notice, because the high of earning extra money masks the underlying problem. That's why I say, side hustles are for people who can't budget. Let's break this down. When you don't have a budget, you don't actually know where your money is going. You might think you're saving or making progress, but in reality, leaks are everywhere. Unused subscriptions, impulse purchases, overpriced coffee, late fees, convenience spending. Each small leak seems harmless, but when compounded over weeks and months, it's massive. And no amount of side hustle money will fix these habits unless you confront them directly. Budgeting changes everything. When you create a budget, you're not restricting yourself, you're taking control. You decide where every dollar goes. You prioritize your goals. You pay yourself first. You save, invest, and protect your financial future. Side hustles can accelerate this process, but they're not the foundation. The foundation is budgeting. I've also seen another common trap. People using side hustles to justify bad spending. They tell themselves, it's okay, I can afford it. I'll make it back with my side gig. And they do sometimes. But then the next month, they spend again and again. The cycle continues. Side hustles become a patch for poor habits, not a path to financial security. Here's another example. Jake. Jake loved video games and gadgets. He started selling old consoles online, flipping tech, and occasionally doing freelance coding gigs. He was making a few $100s a month. He felt proud of himself. But every month, he bought the latest gadgets, accessories, and games. By the end of the month, his bank account looked the same as it did before. He was hustling hard, but never learning to control his spending. The lesson? Side hustles without budgeting are like running on a treadmill. You burn energy, but you never get anywhere. So, how do you avoid this trap? First, you start by budgeting. Track every dollar. Know exactly how much comes in, how much goes out, and where it's going. Cut unnecessary spending. Cancel subscriptions you don't use. Cook meals at home instead of dining out constantly. Stop impulse purchases. When you do this consistently, you'll start to see the power of control. The beauty of budgeting is that it's not about deprivation. It's about freedom. You're no longer a slave to your impulses or to the next paycheck. You know exactly where your money goes, and you can make intentional decisions. Once this foundation is in place, side hustles become optional, not essential. Now, I'm not saying side hustles are useless. On the contrary, they're fantastic when used correctly. But the difference is in the order. First, you master your budget. Then, you use side hustles to accelerate your goals, pay off debt faster, or build wealth. Not to patch a hole you could have stopped with proper planning. Another tip is to treat side hustles like a tool, not a lifeline. If you're constantly relying on extra gigs to make ends meet, you're in trouble. It's also important to understand the cost of hustling. Side gigs demand time, energy, and often sacrifice of personal life. Late nights, weekends, missed family events, mental fatigue, all these add up. And if you're hustling without a budget, the stress outweighs the benefit. You're trading your most valuable resource time for a temporary boost in cash, and often, that boost disappears just as quickly as it came. I've spoken to countless people who've burned out chasing side hustles. They were tired, stressed, and often had nothing to show for it because their spending habits hadn't changed. The lesson is clear. Work smarter, not just harder. So, what practical steps can you take? Here are a few. Track every expense. Don't guess, write it down. Automate your savings. Pay yourself first. Cut non-essential spending. Identify leaks. Set financial goals, both short-term and long-term. Only pursue side hustles after you've mastered the basics. Treat side hustle income as bonus money, not necessary money. Review your budget monthly and adjust as needed. These steps may seem simple, but they're powerful. They prevent you from becoming a slave to side hustles and give you real financial freedom. Imagine knowing exactly where your money is going, not worrying about the next bill, and being able to use extra income strategically rather than reactively. Let's circle back. Side hustles are appealing. They look exciting. They promise fast money. They're glorified online. But without budgeting, they're often a trap. They can burn your time, energy, and sanity. Budgeting, on the other hand, is boring but effective. It's the difference between scrambling to make ends meet and living intentionally with control over your money. The key takeaway: master your finances first. Control what you already have. Once you have that foundation, side hustles become a tool for acceleration. Until then, they're just a band-aid on a problem that could have been solved with discipline, awareness, and planning. Remember, working harder isn't always better. Earning more isn't always the solution. What matters most is working smarter, controlling your money, and building habits that last. Side hustles can help, but only when your foundation is solid. So the next time you see the promise of a side hustle, ask yourself, am I chasing extra money to fix a hole I could have stopped with a budget? Or am I using this as a tool to achieve goals I've already planned for? The answer determines whether you're building wealth or just busy work. Master your money first. Budget intelligently. Spend consciously. Save strategically. Then, and only then, side hustles will be a powerful ally rather than a trap. That's the path to real financial freedom, peace of mind, and a life that isn't ruled by constant stress or overspending. And that, my friends, is worth far more than chasing every new hustle that comes your way. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more tips and strategies to grow your financial knowledge